She waiting on the VA to pay her for it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
You won't regret it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. 12% of you. You know that's what we do all the time.
No problem.
See, we had it.
Audiology. Yep.
Oh, when they did my hip, shit, I was ready to walk the first day. They said, no, wait on it. And I'm like, oh.
It's like you guys, him and the wife that won't come around.
Did you? How long ago was that?
Well, I bet
He's still there?
I don't know.
Everybody, if you don't have your phones on silent or vibrate, please do that now.
I don't know him personally, but we share a lot of patients. I think we're highly involved.
Stapler for
Need to stapler? Oh, he needs a gavel. Uh-oh, Tom, look out. You're liable to get stapled.
Yeah.
And so then he
I did that one.
charged me across the street, and I'm like, okay, for the letter he wrote and whatever.
Does that work much time?
Yeah.
Yeah. My hand's making the round.
Yeah.
Don't use that one. Brad?
I'm out of pens, I guess. I brought 3. You got one, I gave one to him.
Yeah. Oh, you got one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're hearing, hearing be like 10%.
Oh, I knew I had one in here.
You got hearing loss.
No, I did.
Oh, you did, that's right.
Hearing
There's one
loss
over there,
is
yeah.
10.
Yeah, that one. So yesterday, went over and got that, those huge checks that they have to mock a check for that young man that got the $4,500 for the Eagle Scout project. We did that yesterday. Yeah, I am. Ready when you are, boss.
All rise, call to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Two.
Chaplain, uncover. Let us bow our heads, O sovereign ruler of the universe, who art the Lord of hosts and the God of peace. Without thee our efforts are vain. Continue thy blessings upon us and our family, we pray thee, and guide us during our deliberations. Continue thy favor upon our order and help us to practice the spirit of true comradeship both in our councils and the world at large. Enable us to better the community in which we live through our devotion to duty as citizens. We'll now have a moment of silent prayer for our departed comrades and those missing in action and those held as prisoners of war. These and all other necessary blessings we ask of thee, mighty ruler of the universe. Amen.
Amen. Roll call for quorum.
Do I have to say it first time? President Ronnie Hicks, excused. First Vice President Earl Watts, unexcused. Second Vice President Mark Nelson.
Here.
Secretary Kate Broadhurst, present. Treasurer Ken Morales.
Present.
Correspondence Secretary Larry Meisenheimer.
Present.
Corporate Registered Agent Vern LeClaire.
Here.
Director Ron Swaim.
Here.
Director Don Shire.
Present.
Mike Harbison, Director.
Here.
Wayne Abel, Director. And then VAC Superintendent Bradley Leviti.
Present.
present. We have 9 present, 1 absent, 1 excused, and then the VAC superintendent.
Okay, approval of November meeting minutes. Do we have meeting minutes?
Yes. Just go to you guys.
Pass it down, don't return it. You got enough?
One more down this one.
Back.
You guys want to read the November?
Do you want me to go ahead and read it out loud, or
No,
I'll let them read it?
I think they can read it, right? I gotta do the, I have to print the stupid report again.
I'll be back. Yeah.
You have an extra copy of the minutes?
Uh,
Does he have to say what the roll call there is a quorum?
did you, I don't know.
I didn't hear him say it.
It was a quorum.
There is one, but doesn't that need to be said?
Does anybody else, you know, did you tell the publisher? This is right now just for their deliberation.
I read my pen again.
I know, I told you I needed some.
You gave that one to Tom. You got an extra one?
I'll bring a box.
He needs to bring his box down here.
Box of pens.
Work, you better test it. Did you hear what they said to answer your question?
No.
So when they get approved, they'll be online for you. Right now, it's just for us to, they're not approved yet, so. So they don't have an extra paper copy they can handle tonight. Everybody knows that.
You need that?
I don't need all, I don't need to put the other ones, right?
That's fine. You have one.
Do I need to put the other names?
No. You got first line. This chair seat blades really sucks.
Low rider.
I think Kate didn't catch you calling for a roll call. Yeah, when I couldn't figure it out, you know, it stopped printing, so I.
Oh, did it? Oh,
Yeah.
man.
We had to reload.
Oh, out of paper.
Yeah, it just stops and it
Yeah,
doesn't,
but you put paper in it, it should take off.
it says the copy machine.
Yeah, it should.
Well, that's what happens.
People mess with it, get it out of sequence.
Particular calling in life is messing up equipment.
Except they-
Everybody
they just talked
finished
about
reading
copy
or-
machine. They only have enough for the board members. so-
Good.
You're not thinking.
During, regarding roll call for quorum, there being 6 or more executive board members present, a quorum is declared.
All right.
Commissioner report?
I hope you're gonna do the discussion on the minutes or any
Oh, I'm sorry.
changes.
I need a motion. Motion. Approve the minutes in a second, and we can have a discussion.
Say that.
I need a motion for minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion Ken, second by Hardison.
Do I have to do roll call?
No.
All those in favor?
No, keep
No,
going.
no.
Discussion.
We have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion.
This is generally where if you want to add anything, or I think there's something that should be subtracted, we would talk about it.
Well, having just the 15 minutes to sit here and read it, which we should have had this before this meeting, which is standard procedure, this just adds to the time. That's my 2 cents on the subject. Any other meeting we've had, we've already had the minutes in front of us, at least the day before, maybe 2 days before, so I'm disappointed in that at this point. So, Any discussion? Any executive board members? Any improvements we need to make? Any changes in the wording? Okay. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion is carried.
Nay.
Okay, approval of minutes has been done. Commission report.
They should be coming around. So this is December. I just want to caveat it. It's short because all of the December numbers were on the annual report. So these are just basically everything that we processed since we did the annual report, which was, usually we call for the numbers the 27th of the month. So last month, those numbers, this fiscal year ended on the 30th, and then our meeting was the 10th. So everything between the 30th and the 10th is basically what was lacking or not on the annual report for December. So the first page is the expenditure report. Like I said, all these expenditures were included with the annual report, the December meeting minutes, or not minutes, report. So between that short period of time, we only spent $49.06. Next page is the interim and financial assistance. Like I said, this is in a short period of time. We've assisted 12 veterans since I've taken back over this process, which is more than what we did, screened anyway, I should say, previously, and we're back on track to get out as much as the assistance as we can for veterans who apply. We did 35 vouchers. Down below that are the townships in which the veterans came from, and then the amounts for a total of $10,828.23. Below that are the assistance by categories for a total of $10,828.23 for those categories. Transportation services, $202.50 for that category. And are there any questions?
Hey Brian, I do have one question.
Yeah.
The vouchers, is that like to help the veterans out as far as like maybe a food voucher or a hotel voucher type deal?
It could be for any of the vouchers that we have relationships with the vendor.
Okay,
So like for, depends on what you're talking about. So if it's a private landlord, then it goes to the landlord.
Okay.
If it's a mortgage company, then it goes to the mortgage company.
okay, I see. I understand.
And then, yeah, and then we have relationships with Schnucks, who's the primary vendor for food and personal hygiene.
Okay.
And then, so basic categories are rent, mortgage, electric, gas, water, sewer, trash,
Basic necessities. and
food and
that
personal
sort of
hygiene. So those are the basic items. And then we have, you know, if somebody comes in with a unique situation, during this time of year, we primarily do more property tax because everybody's taxes just came due. I think the fourth coupon was due, what, last month? So now all the people who didn't pay their property taxes are coming in to apply. That answer your question?
Yep, yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
Is there a limit on the food that they can purchase or?
So, the food is based off of these, so.
Basic necessities?
Yeah, so depends on the family size, but.
You have a formula for that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's-
And it's published by the state, so it's, I think it's $307 for one person, $120 for personal hygiene. And then the other thing we started doing during COVID was pet assistance,
Yeah.
because people fed their pets more than they fed themselves, so. Anyone else?
Sometimes it tastes better.
Doesn't look bad, but.
Sometimes.
Need a motion. Done.
Yeah, like entertain a motion motion to accept the commission report?
I make a motion, we accept the report as read, given.
I'll second.
Ron made the motion, Larry seconded.
Larry Alphabet.
Any discussion on the report? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Right, motion is carried. Okay, the IACVAC and ACVSO.
So winter conference is coming up February 1st through the 3rd. That's in Peoria. They just announced that they are not having their basic benefits online for new people who are new VSOs who are getting accredited or going to get accredited. So then that pushes the next date out for accreditation to the annual meeting, which is in June. I'm not sure the reason why the cancellation, other than they might not have had enough people sign up. So it wasn't held. So we wanted to get it, as many people accredited. So our next opportunity will be in June at the NAC conference. And then there's an option to, once again, you can either attend in person or virtually.
So you're saying the February 3rd conference training is?
The conference is still on, but the training to get a new VSO accredited, what they call basic benefits, is not being held at that same time. So.
Why is that aspect of the conference important to discuss?
I didn't hear what she said.
I'm not understanding your question.
Why are you bringing up that the new training for new VSOs and not continued training for VSOs is being brought up? Instead of highlighting all of the training.
It is highlighting all the training. It's just that aspect was canceled by NAC VSO. So the training is still going on. It's just they're not holding a basic benefits training during that time.
Is it-
Everything else stayed the same except for the one training was canceled, so he's just letting everyone know. Only change in what was planned is the new training was canceled. Everything else is going on as scheduled.
Which of our delegates and alternates are going?
We haven't got that.
Well, Mike, so that was discussed last annual meeting. Our delegate is Ron Hicks, and our alternate is Earl Watts. This is done annually where they're appointed, and that happened December 10th.
Unfinished business? We don't need to vote on anything there, it's just information.
Just a reminder, the post delegate and alternate certification or selection and certification went out. I also had them for distribution at the annual meeting. Many of you guys took them, and then they were mailed out to every post. We mailed them to the post because we didn't. If a delegate or somebody goes off, because the way it used to be, somebody would say, "Hey, can you just mail this to my house because I'm the one who handles it," and just turned into a nightmare. So we gave them out at the last annual meeting, and then they were mailed to the post. So if you did not get one at the last annual meeting, they are available at your post, probably in your mailbox. And then that needs to be brought back, mailed back, brought in by, we already started receiving some, even before January 1st, back. So, thank you guys, get those back. I think we talked about that in depth last time. And then also if you need another copy, or the post needs another copy, then get with me and I can get you another copy.
It's online also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a question for you. When do you recognize those delegates that have been mailed back in?
At the first quarterly meeting preceding that, so in this case, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's March 15th. So they're actually seated on March 1st, but the first time that they'll be able to vote is at that first quarterly meeting.
March 16th.
March 16th.
You were at my meeting, at my post, when I relieved Vernon of his position. I had the opportunity at that time to replace him. And you did not recognize, and you were at my meeting. You sat and watched all of it go down. And you wouldn't recognize my delegates.
Are you talking at the annual meeting?
No, at my post meeting, when Vernon was relieved of his duties.
He's referencing the December 15th meeting.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure what you mean by I didn't recognize them.
Last month, you would not recognize.
Yeah, that's what I said. You're talking about I didn't recognize them at our annual meeting.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what you mean.
I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Last meeting, the one I,
So what happened last month was there was some confusion, I guess you would say, as who the proper delegate was, because.
well, you were at my meeting and
Yeah.
you watched it go down.
No, I know. I'm just. Okay.
Then
fine.
how could there be any question?
All right. So you want me to answer, and then I'll tell you. So, and we debated that heavily at the last annual meeting. We spent a lot of time on that, and then and then it went back and forth. And the VAC, Tom Burkhardt, our attorney, came up with a compromise of, since there was confusion and there's no remedy at that time, so the compromise was to allow the delegate that you had seated to vote, and then to also call for a vote for Vern, and then either way, if it went, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, if the vote went one way, it didn't sway the vote if we were voting on any particular matter one way or another, whether you guys were voting in a particular way. Does that make sense? Because I think, if I remember, every vote went like 18-2.
But my point being, you sat in my meeting. You watched me relieve Vernon of his duties.
Are we hashing this again?
So why would there need to be two votes here?
Not here. I'm not understanding. Are we talking about the annual meeting? Or
Yeah.
Because we needed to move forward.
Okay, you knew he did not have a legit vote because he had been relieved of his duty. You sat in the meeting and listened to it. I talked with you afterwards. And you come to the annual meeting and you give him a vote that he shouldn't have.
I think we
Had a good compromise.
yeah, I think we came up with a compromise at that time to satisfy both parties, because I think even Tom, there's no clear, other than the voting rolls that are certified as March 1st, that's who the delegates are. Because there's no remedy or no solution to replace somebody midstream. And that, we had this discussion for a long time, Ron. I don't know how else to answer your question.
I think my point's been made. Okay.
So we can't relieve a delegate if he dies?
What
If I
was
kill
that?
over and die tonight, you're not gonna be able to replace me until the term goes?
Well, no, we have that. That would be the alternate who comes in and takes that.
Right, so my alternate died, and I replaced him.
But you have to submit paperwork into here, to the office, right?
But this is
Another
what we went
delegate.
into, he wasn't there, I don't believe, Wayne, last month, and this is what we went heavily into.
Submit
We
paperwork.
had other delegates of, before you were brought onto the executive board, Tom
I'm
Hoppenrath.
just asking the question, what do we do if that happens? We have to fill out proper paperwork and send it to you, is that what you're saying?
It doesn't state it.
Right now, the law states literally like, because I'm the only one, there's no backup for me. So like if I die or something happens to me like
Right.
medically and I have to sit out, like, you know, it's just, yeah.
So hold on, hold on, so the remedy is we're gonna do the right thing.
That's what I'm asking.
If
What
you
is
don't
the right
have
way?
a seated delegate or an alternate,
Right.
and that member dies, we had one of our board members, Tom Hoppenrath, the same thing happened. He got ill, and then he couldn't show up. He could barely communicate, right? So we waited a period of time because we wanted him back because he's always been on our board, and he didn't have an alternate. And then that's when we went to the delegate list, and that's how you and Don both came on, because you guys as delegates, they stepped away. That was there
I get
before you.
that part.
And then, so we went, in Don's case, he was the alternate, he was listed, so he was the first choice at the call of the president. In your case, we didn't have a delegate. I think we offered it to Skip out of Collinsville first. He turned it down, and then that's when you came on, and then your alternate wasn't there. But it's the same thing. If you didn't have a delegate, we're gonna, if somebody does, if that happens, like Dr. Mike just said, something happens, and I hate using people as examples, but if something does happen to their delegate and they don't have an alternate, we're not gonna say, well, you need to wait till next year. That's not the common sense thing to do. So we're gonna allow those people the benefit of the doubt. But on you guys' end, that's what you guys do at the post. And then you would just notify us, so then we have proper roles when we come to a meeting and we need a roll call, we know that ahead of time, so.
Okay, so that's what I need to do. I need to give you my alternate because my alternate has died.
Yeah, throughout the year, I don't know when all these people pass away, and it's just a lot.
Okay, I have a written statement for you.
Well, no,
But you'll be able to do that.
turn your new ones in
Yes.
anyway.
You're gonna do that on this new
That's what those
certification.
forms are for.
Yeah.
You still got another month until March.
Yes, you do. I'm just saying, but that's the form that you would put it on.
Okay.
It seems to me that in the new business, this is probably, since this is not the second meeting we've had where this has become a hotly contested issue.
We're not on new business yet.
Excuse me. I'm sorry?
We're
We're
still
not
on
on new
business.
business yet. Let's go by the Robert's rules, okay?
We're under.
Quit interrupting when we're not there yet,
Okay, just
please.
asking.
So, I'm just reminding you guys, if we're not expecting you guys to be experts in all this stuff, but the form is pretty simple. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be on that form. If you want to write it on a napkin and put this as your delegate and reflect it in your post minutes, and then you can refer back to them later on. Here's when it's reflected in my post minutes. That's good. And then just give us a copy of the post minutes. That's, if something happens mid-year or something like that.
Okay.
Because we don't go to all the post meetings when all these people fall off the rolls and fall on the rolls and everything else. That answer your question?
Okay, can we go to new business now?
So,
Have we debated this enough, or we?
yeah, I think so.
Does everybody?
No, you gotta give him, he's a member of the public.
Okay.
He has
Wait.
something to say about it, go ahead.
No, he was
No,
he
he
would,
was addressing new business.
Something
We
underneath
aren't
new
there
business.
yet. I don't want to be rude.
yeah.
No, I just, this relates to the old business as well, because this is the second month we've had the same issue, so this is in fact unfinished business.
Okay.
So this is something that obviously, as I see on the list of new business, we should probably bring this up, because it was, what, an hour and a half, a fight last time? So obviously, this has to be something we take seriously, and we have to put those places in. And honestly, it should be up here, because it was a hotly contested. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Okay.
How we do, just needs to be taken, I think it's that important.
And I think we spent a lot of time on it last month.
Agreed.
And I just wanted to reiterate it again this month, because that's how important I think it is. And I will reiterate it every month up until March 1st. And historically, we have called the post, called the adjutants, called the commanders, whoever we had listed, and we drug these delegates across the finish line.
That's a topic for the bylaws. need to address this.
Should be a process for that, right? Yeah, there should be a process.
Okay, new business, executive board officers and directors' roles.
So this comes up time and time again. The executive board, everybody understands their positions. Let me see, it's on the roll call. So President Hicks, first Vice President Earl Watts, second Vice President Mark Nelson, Recording Secretary Kate Broadhurst, Treasurer Ken Morales, Correspondent Secretary Larry Meisenheimer, Corporate Registered Agent Vern LeClaire, Director Ron Swaim, Director Donald Shire, Director Mike Harbison, and Director Wayne Abel. So those are the positions, and then when we file our reports and stuff, those are the positions, and we send out welcome packets with the blurb that are taken from the Robert Rules of Order. So if you go to Robert's Rules of Order, I brought my tablet here tonight. I wasn't expecting this many people, and we would have showed it up on the screen. But everybody can go to Google, they can type in Robert's Rules of Order, go to the correct edition, I'm not sure which one it is, and you can get a definition of what each of these roles are, and what they fulfill. Some boards don't have all of the roles, because some of them are not necessary. And that's where different boards have different amounts of people on the board. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands who the officers are, and then who the directors are. And then you have the board at large, right? And that's the membership, which is the delegates and the alternates. The delegates fulfill the role, the primary role, and the alternates fill the secondary role. But they're not the officers and directors. Okay? The way I understand it is every one of you guys at this table are directors. You have one hat, and then you also have a second hat, which is an officer, for the good order to keep things kind of straight. So I just wanted to put that out there before we go into the next item C, because that's where maybe some of these questions will come up. Ready for B?
Yes, that's right.
All right.
CBS.
So we're going back to the IAVAC. That is primarily I've been involved with the IAVAC, I believe, since 2009, 10, and its primary purpose was education and training, and that's what its primary focus is. I think that they've made great strides in that area, and that is where we go. The purpose of that is because people have asked questions between last meeting, this meeting, and historically. That is the purpose and relationship that we have with the IAVAC. We have a new person that needs trained. We work with the state association when they have training available, or NACVSO, which hosts the training nationally throughout the year. The relationship is just that. That's what we do. And then they provide the training, test out, they get accredited, then it goes through the process. And then that's how VSOs are made or born, I guess you would say, in relationship to the purpose and the way I've always understood the IAVAC. It's taken on and morphed into multiple things now that I think that it's expanded beyond that scope, which is fine because, once again, it's an association and they can do what they want, but their primary purpose is education and training. And that kind of goes back up to the point, Shannon, of the IAVAC up top. But I wanted to explain that because people they don't understand what IAVAC or NACVSO is. So I guess I'll start there. Again, back up. IAVAC stands for the Illinois Association of County Veterans Service Office or Commission, Veterans Assistance Commissions. NACVSO is a national association that provides all of that training. item C. You ready for that? So, we talked at the annual meeting, we've talked about this multiple times throughout the year in discussions internally at the VAC. We understood and we were very aware that our bylaws were way out of date. I think we beat that to death last meeting too. And we were aware that we needed to change the bylaws to now mirror the Veterans Assistance Act that went into effect January 1st, 2023. And there was a trailer bill that was thrown out there mid-year. And so I think that's still out there. And then we started looking at this because it became an issue over the last couple months. And then Mr. Burkhart and I started reviewing them and seeing where the changes could be made, and to try to fill in some of these gaps, Wayne, where the Military Veterans Assistance Act may be silent. Okay? And then there's other places where we can go for answers for that, which is the Nonprofit Corporations Act. Okay? So there's certain things in there that they lay out how a board is supposed to be organized. And that's kind of what I was talking about with the roles earlier, right? It gives you the roles of what roles could be assigned, and then it depends on what kind of corporation you are or nonprofit or whatever. You may need more or less roles to fulfill the duties of that organization. So you have the Military Veterans Assistance Act that's going to play a role in the bylaws. You're going to have, I think, the Nonprofit Corporation Act. And then you're going to have the 501c19 designation, which all of you guys that are post, that's your guys' designation at the post. So there's a lot of things in those three areas, just in those three areas of the law, I guess you would say, that combine to put together the full picture of what we need to do in order to have a properly and good set of bylaws. And you can't just rely on one because one might be silent, and then you have to go to a different area of the law to fill in the gaps. But anywhere there's a gap in the law, then we rely on common sense. And I think we've relied on common sense a lot, and I appreciate that. I think that we are going to come out of this process with a good set of bylaws. There's already multiple, going back to the IAVCA, there's already multiple commissions that have already done that. But where we want to make sure is that we're not just looking at the Military Veterans Assistance Act, we're looking at all these other areas where we could pull from to make our bylaws stronger in those areas where the Military Veterans Assistance Act is silent. Or we could rely on other state statutes that would apply. And Tom can speak more to that. And then we want to set a committee. I make the recommendation because, like I said, I've been reading now. I've been reading the new Military Veterans Assistance Act. I've been reading the Nonprofit Corporation Act. And I've been reading the 501c19 designation that's at the federal level, right? And we had that designation going back to 1989, so I had to go back and review a lot. I guess it was applied for in 87. And then, I don't know if anybody wants to hear this, but I'll just briefly say it. So the history of it is the federal government started giving these designations, and they pushed it out there via the IRS, and there's so many separate units of government, or units of government, not just in Illinois. I'm sure somebody in this room may know how many different units of government are in Illinois. But if you go by the counties, there's 102. Is that right? 102? 110? 102?
Something like that.
So there's 102 right there. And then you get into townships and cities and municipalities and special taxing districts and yada, 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 and the list goes on. And by the time you add all those together and then you multiply that by the number of states, and then you add in all of these nonprofit designations throughout the years, the federal government quickly realized that they were going to be inundated with tax returns from these entities. So then they pulled back and they said, well, if you are a unit of government, you do not need to file the tax return because you're already being audited and umbrellaed underneath the, in our case, the county auditor. Does that make sense? And that put a squash, and the IRS didn't have to receive all these federal tax returns. But there's a lot of good things that's in that 501c3 or 501c19 designation that is specifically recognized that service organizations can do for the benefit of their members. And I think if the federal government put that together for a reason, then I think it has some merit. I recommend that myself be on that committee, Mr. Burkhart, president, and then if anybody else wants to weigh in that's on the executive board, that's fine. We plan, like I said, to pull together from all of those drafts that are already out there. We plan to pull together from those 3 areas and maybe more. But right now, those are the 3 areas or the 3 laws or designations or whatever you want to call them that we're going to pull from. Tom, did you want to add anything to that? Or?
Really, I think you're ready for a motion to.
I have a question.
No,
Question.
you need a motion. I think the president just wants committees according to the things. Let everybody have their say.
So, is there any board members that have any board members that have any questions? Or I see you over there, John. We'll get to you in a second.
I'd like to sit on it.
Do you have a time frame as far as like getting it
Well,
done?
we've already addressed this last annual meeting as far as the time frame when we beat that to death.
Yeah.
So
No, you're talking about how
Get
often
it done.
we're gonna meet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
He wants to know what,
Okay.
if he wants to jump in on the committee, he wants to know.
Yeah, so,
if he's gonna be here
once
3
again,
days a week.
yeah, so
I think that's, and that, that's
No,
what you were asking.
I thought you were asking about the
That's what
time.
I wanna know.
No, yeah. So like I said, we have the drafts all ready to pull from. Right? We've already isolated the areas that we think in those 2 or 3 laws that are pertinent. We're going to pull them together. We're going to come up with some drafts, and then that committee would look over those drafts, make changes, make recommendations, come out.
I could see us getting it done in 3 meetings between now and March. And that, when that happens, and depending upon the makeup of the committee, everybody gets together and says, what dates are good for you? You know, that's kind of the way I've always done it.
Yeah.
With other lawyers and stuff, so maybe
3
postpone
meetings.
when the dates are based upon when it's best for everybody that wants to be on the committee.
Yeah. And I want to caution you, so, you know, we don't expect you guys to understand all these laws, so that's why we've isolated these certain sections of these things that we think are pertinent. And then I brought it up at the last annual meeting. We're not other counties. We're down here, and I've talked to people till I'm blue in the face. Just because it happened somewhere else doesn't mean that it's a good thing, and doesn't mean that it's a fit for Madison County veterans, Madison County taxpayers. So, I agree. I think we can get it done fairly quickly. I think we have enough resources and education. You guys some of you guys have been around a long time, so.
The only thing I would add that you and I discussed about is this, and just to give you a better idea of where we are in the process. We need to put together a big blob of clay, leave it that way, okay, on the table. We gotta get the clay there in the first place. Then everybody gets to whittle through it and mold it and shape it and make it into our new set of bylaws, okay? But we gotta have something to start with to begin with. That's what the committee that's why I suggested Brad, and I said, so, you know, having a legal point of view, because you'd be able to bring in all the laws that apply to it. Having his experience since 2009, dealing with Veterans Affairs is invaluable. So, and then the president obviously did say he wanted to be part of it. And then we just open up, anybody who wants to, you know, chime in. But this first initial committee that we hope to get to between now and March is to put something on the table and say, this is an idea. not etched in stone, it's just something that we can work with.
A little piece of
You-
clay.
If you like it, fine. If you need to trim a little off on this side, or add a little to this side, or address an issue that nobody else had thought about, that's how we come up with the consensus that we can present to the membership. And frankly, we may be ambitious in saying we're gonna get this to them in the second meeting. Which Larry Miller and I discussed at the December meeting. That may be, but if so, we push it off until we do have something that that everybody can look at and say, yeah.
Yeah,
This addresses all the buttons, all the issues, all of the things that have come up. And so that's what this committee's doing, is we want to shape, mold, and put something together, which is a piece of clay that everybody can, it's going to have some form to it.
Right.
I mean, but then the details, you need to work out. That's the analogy that I would put as far as what
I'm
to expect.
just making the recommendation too. Well, but if we have the entire executive board on the committee, then there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen there.
More than merrier.
I ain't got time.
Right now. Yeah, Ron's already, Dr. Mike's bowing out now. But it is an important process, and I agree with definitely the president being on there, not because he's the president, but he has the longest tenure of anybody around, and he understands historically the way Madison County VAC has been operated before him as president, and while he was a director and moved up through different roles on the committee. I would like to see someone else that's on the committee that is knowledgeable and that will take the time to read the laws prior to coming to the meeting, so then we're not, or those three areas that I talked about, so they can bring the clay and add it to it versus coming to the meeting and then wanting to read the law and debate it at that time. That's my recommendation.
Who just retired?
So my recommendation is myself, Mr. Burkhart, president, and then Kate. Sounds like she said she wanted to throw her hat in the ring. If that's it, that's it. Anybody else got any?
I'll volunteer to do it. Help with you.
So that's 5.
Can I speak? I think watching meeting videos and sitting here listening, I think they're confusing things. Don't get offended, but you shouldn't have a big ball of clay. You should have 2 islands with a big old tank ditch in between them and 5-row concertinas so they can't intermingle. The Veterans Assistance Commission of Madison County is a public body with a period after it. It appears there's also a Veterans Assistance Commission of Madison County, Incorporated, which is the nonprofit, and the 501c19 or whatever you call it. They're 2 separate entities. You can't combine the 2. The fundings are separate. The nonprofit law does not apply to the public body of the VAC of Madison County. It cannot apply. The Military Veterans Assistance Act applies along with the Public Aid Code, Open Meetings Act, and FOIA, and the other laws that apply to public bodies, soon to be the Public Officers Prohibited Activities Act, once this new trailer bill gets approved. None of the Nonprofit Corporation Act applies at all whatsoever to the public body of the commission.
Yes.
Period.
So
why do you want to make I'm looking at the bylaws. I've downloaded them off your website. These are the bylaws of the corporation, not the public body, because that's what it says on its face. Veterans Assistance Commission of Madison County, Inc. That's not the public body. It doesn't appear that you even have bylaws for the public body. And something that the attorney mentioned at the December meeting. Said that the executive board, which I believe should just be dissolved, but that's my opinion, that the executive board can pass binding ordinances that can bind the entire commission. Where is that in the bylaws? He said it was in bylaws. I read the bylaws 4 or 5 times. I cannot find it. Section 6, or Article 6, Section 3, is the closest thing. The executive board shall have general supervision of the affairs between the meetings of the commission. I don't believe that's a fact. That would violate state law. Shall fix the hour and place of meeting, and shall make recommendations. You should underline and bold that. Recommendations to the Veterans Assistance Commission, provided that a simple majority of board members is present. The board shall be subject, the executive board shall be subject to the orders of the Veterans Assistance Commission. That's the entire commission. Last meeting, you guys are acting like it's entirely the opposite. And none of the executive board's acts shall conflict by the Veterans Assistance Commission. If you can't agree with the black and white, do you have your bylaws in front of you? You should turn it on to page 5, Article 6, Section 3, and read that one paragraph. Your attorney was wrong, 100% wrong.
Well, we thank you for your
To
input.
tell the full commission that the executive board can bind the entire commission is false.
Sure.
And he needs to put out a press release and put it on your website to inform the rest of the commissioners that was false.
Thank you.
All right, go to the commission. Are we done with the?
I think we addressed open meetings throughout. Anybody else have anything?
It's for public comment now?
Right, I mean, you just had public comment, but if there's more.
Well, I was addressing that one issue. Please, once again, read that section. The executive board.
I'm not, hoping you, John, hold it just a second. You got executive board directors, did you ask if anybody on the executive board wanted to address? Then you should.
Okay, I'll wait.
Then you should open up to the public. I think we jumped right ahead to, did we, or did I miss it?
Well, he raised his hand over there and he was indicating for.
Well, it may be that nobody wants to say anything more. I just, it'd be better for me.
Well, that was my take on the subject. So
Okay, all right.
We discussed.
Sorry for interrupting.
We discussed the first part, and now we're talking about the meetings, dates, you know.
Yep.
Or we could talk about all 3 and then talk about all 3 again. So it doesn't make much sense.
I think we.
You're the chair. Tell us what to do.
But if anybody wants to stay after, I'll stay here until I get hungry. I'll answer any of you guys'
Let's don't do
questions.
that again tonight.
After the fact, if you need any, Ron, or you need any additional information.
Can I finish the public comment then?
What, in regards to what portion of the item C?
General public comments.
No, we're not the general public comments, we're on item C. Let's
Okay.
work on item C.
You're on 7C?
Yes. We keep getting off the subject and going into these tirades about other things that, you know, I'm not a law expert, I'm not gonna sit here and read the frickin' law and everything, and there's not a person in this room that knows every law in here, so, you know, quit citing this stuff that all it does is just pisses everybody off.
You don't learn anything if nothing's ever cited.
Well, I understand that,
So
but
why quit citing?
there's a time
Makes
and a
no sense.
there's a time and a place in everybody's meeting. Every Marine Corps League, every VFW, you have a point where you can talk about that item. You don't bring up your sister's dirty laundry during, you know, this part of the discussion. So let's do that, okay?
Stay with the subject.
Let's stay with the subject.
I understand with the subject this time.
Okay.
With the bylaws, we can get a draft out, can we pass out the commission so we can like look at just for like an exchange of eyes after you guys got like a draft 2 or 3 when you guys are close to that, so that maybe there's something that might be missed that we could contribute to this? I mean, I understand that there's a close group for that, and we don't want to have like 100 ideas that's destroying the process, but before we publish it, would it be an opportunity for us to look at just, you know, and just say, okay, we're unsure about this at our level, you know, or can we contribute to make this clear?
Yes, and I think I addressed this last annual meeting. I want everybody's voice to be heard.
I just
Yes.
want to make sure, just remind everybody that we've met us.
Yes.
I know you got your 4 or 5 that are going to be doing the heavy lifting, but I'd like to make sure mine just, I'd like to.
Yep.
shout
And-
them all.
And at the, I don't know if you were at the last meeting, but at the last meeting, I agreed with Larry Miller, who made the observation, we can't just throw it at the commission and pass it next meeting. That's an ambitious goal, but
Not
the
the
law, the bylaws say you have to have it a meeting ahead of time. So you're gonna get it and have an entire quarter of a year to look at it and study it. And then you won't be allowed to vote on it for 4 months or 3 months. I forget, whatever. A quarter of a year.
Okay.
So yes, you will get it.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
Meeting dates and timeline, or we discuss everything on item C? Okay, let's go to the good of the commission. Executive board directors shall be permitted to address matters of interest, save legal, personal matters, religion, or partisan politics. Now's the time to speak.
No. Brad, you said that they get like a $300 grocery voucher. How many times can they go get that?
So the way it's set up, just for accounting purposes,
Yeah.
you know, keeping tabs on credits and expecting Schnooks to, because what they would have to do is reissue some credit somehow, which they're not willing to do.
Okay,
So-
my question is,
It's a
the
one.
VAC's working with the post.
Yes.
I have 2 food pantries at my post. He has 1.
Okay.
There's no reason somebody should be starving at a veterans in Madison County at all. I'm just saying, if there's a way to work this, and I don't know how to work it, but if we're gonna help veterans, my process is if you can give them that voucher for meat, we got the canned foods, that saves them more where they can spend more on meat, and the $300 voucher, I'm thinking, would last a month or 2 months instead of 2 weeks.
So there's a lot of good ideas. I mean,
How do we incorporate our food pantry to help these veterans
yeah,
to be
and we
fed?
incorporate the other ones, Eggland, Pantry. A lot of the veterans already go there, and then they're referred back to there, but a lot of them just don't. And then historically, the food and the personal hygiene items used to be included in the total amount of assistance that we used to provide veterans. So like a veteran that comes in with no income, say the standard of need is $667, we used to deduct that 300 or 420 back then. You know, it was a much lower amount back when we changed this. So if they were getting approved for the max 660 and 67, and we were using that to include the food and personal hygiene in that amount, it was leaving us with just a couple $100 to help them pay their rent and their utilities, and it just wasn't working. So we opted to, as a commission, and this was a long time ago, to pull that out of the monthly amount that they get applied to their other basic needs. So then we ensured that full amount was directed to food, and it didn't interfere with our ability to help them pay their rent, their electric, and stuff like that.
Right.
And then it used to be, when I started, it used to be $15 a month for personal hygiene. And now it's up to $120. That's for the veteran, and then $40 for each dependent or each member of the household.
Okay, I got
So-
that stuff at my pantry too.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, how can we get,
It gets
when
difficult.
people walk in, are you able to say, hold on, let me call a post, it can be mine or Ron's post, and we'll even bring the food to them if we have to?
Yeah, we can. I mean, yeah, but
Make it a first stop before you go to Schnucks,
Right.
well, we can't.
because they're gonna get plenty of stuff there from
Yeah.
both of us.
If I can get them.
But a lot of
cans
people are
cer-
traveling in
cereal.
from like Highland or an area that's in unincorporated Madison County. And some of them don't even have a Schnucks within 10 minutes. And then some of them they're on the bus, so then they gotta go
I'm assuming
to,
that transportation is an issue as well.
yeah, and,
Well, if they're standing here, it wouldn't be that hard to call my post and say, hey, can you bring some food up there?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Because Wayne's done more than food. He's helped people out with air conditioning units and all
That's
that.
the only reason I joined this executive board, is I wanna help veterans. This stuff here, okay, whatever, you know, I'm fine with that. I want to help veterans.
yeah. So, in the, and like I said, I haven't started reading because I didn't want to do it until after the first. But, if, like I said, quote me, I don't have it in front of me. I think in the new updated law, that you guys as post have to share who you helped every month with those items at your post, according to the Military Veterans Assistance Act. So what I'm saying is that is an avenue for you guys to say at the end of the month, or if you guys want to send them up as they come in, that's the way that I recommend that you guys do it. If you got a veteran, I just met with somebody from 1308 today.
I know, I sent them up
And, you know, we want that. But, you know, it's difficult. And that's the way it's always been done. If you guys have a better solution to meet your local geographical area, that's fine. The problem is the coordination and the time spent, you know.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up, because you got a guy that's standing there at the depot that answers the phone 90% of the time. And I know he knows where my post is because he's a member.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is something that we can discuss offline. I don't think it's something here.
I mean, I'm not going to get resolved today, but I'm bringing it up. There's a way to make sure these guys aren't going hungry, and gals.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's going hungry, then we definitely need to see them.
Well, that's why I'm
And
asking you what the limit is for you to feed the veterans. If you got a limit on your...
Well, that limit, Wayne, is just enough to get them down to Snooks, so they can get food immediately, right? But most of them say, well, I got enough food to get me through, mail me the voucher. Right? So a lot of them get mailed the vouchers. Some of them say, hey, you know what, I don't need this. Do I have to spend this today? Because they're like, I got food now for my kids, and then I think on the voucher they expire 90 days. Right? But we encourage them to go spend it immediately, because then, you know, if somebody holds this to the 90th day, then the argument could be made that they really need the assistance.
Right, yeah.
Right? So, yeah, we've been down some of these paths before, but yeah, I'm willing to entertain anything that's working or works better. But, and I don't want to reduce the amount, right?
So
And
we
I
can
think,
make flyers, me and him can make flyers with our post and our numbers on it so that they can be handed out or given to them when you give the voucher so they know they can be fed.
sure, yeah. And we would do that for those, and we refer, I mean, there's a lot of other things. I mean, we've beat different things down, we've kicked in doors to get some of these things resolved, and I think we do a pretty good job of making sure that, especially if they don't have food. And then the other one
I
is,
get that part, but you only got, your hands are only tied for so much. You can only help that person so much,
Yes.
food-wise.
yeah. And
I
then
don't have a limit on how much I can feed my food, because as soon as my food pantry's empty, I can get it refilled.
yeah, and that's another opportunity for us to help out a post as the VAC,
Okay.
where you guys are not having that burden to refill those pantries by going out and spending your time. Then you can focus more on time distributing that food at your local post.
So
So,
every post in American Legion should be asking for that so they can get a food pantry put in their post or their Legion.
yeah. And,
Where's the room for it?
well, and I've seen around the communities. I mean, the libraries have donation boxes and food boxes, so I'm aware, and I hear your point, and I think, yeah.
I started with a shelf there. I'm sorry.
Kate.
Sorry. I started with a shelf. I emptied took liquor off one shelf and put food pantry on there. I figured the food was better than the liquor.
Yeah.
So if you're asking if there's room, there's always room for at least enough food to feed somebody for a week.
It's tough, but we'll talk.
Okay.
Good idea. Do you want to bring that up again?
Do you have anything you want to ask?
This is for public comment. Once again, I want to reiterate, when you redo your bylaws, separate completely the nonprofit with the public body. There can be no exception. They don't intermingle. They don't commingle. which brings me to another point. The executive board, which should be called a committee, not a board, has absolutely no power to make any decisions whatsoever on anything. That includes pay raises for employees. Your pay raise needs to go in front of the entire commission, and the entire commission has the power to give you that pay raise or say no. That has to happen. It cannot sit there and not happen. What?
None.
But all those ordinances and resolutions, those 4 or 5, whoever was at the last meeting wanted the entire board to vote on it, that needs to go with the next full commission. Those need voted on. And you should probably not take your pay raise until that gets voted on. And if it gets voted on, sure, take your back pay. That's fine. But as of right now, you were never legally given a pay raise. And the same goes with hiring. What?
Oh, we memorize that.
The executive board gave them the pay raise. They don't have the power to do that. The commission, I'm told, never voted on the pay raise. The attorney wrote a letter to the attorney general that said, I am the attorney for the Veterans Assistance Commission of Madison County Incorporated. He never said he is the attorney for the commission, the public body. If he's the attorney for the corporation, why is the public body paying him for his work if he's not the attorney for the public body? You guys need to figure that out. That's why some of the commission members at the full commission, to me on the video, appeared to be confused. And I sat here all confused when you're trying to explain how, the MVAA and the Non-Profit Corporation Act and all this is supposed to work together. It's not supposed to work together, ever. They're separate. I could go on forever, and I'd like to talk to you after the meeting, if that's fine. But that's all I have during the meeting.
Yeah, my name's Kirk Allen. I just wanted to bring up a couple of things. And I thank you all for your service. I appreciate it. I'm a vet myself. The last 3 words of our Pledge of Allegiance. Anybody? Last 3 words. Justice for all. We're all here to exercise that. Justice for all. I think we all agree with that. Section 2 of your VAC. For the just, necessary, and needed assistance and services of military veterans. When you start doling out money to organizations and other entities, that's not the veteran or the family of the veteran. The law is specific on that. If you really want to do what this body is intended to do to help veterans, read Section 2 and apply it to the letter of the law. It's about the veterans. Now I want to default back to the question you asked because it's not been answered. If a veteran walks in, and you don't have to answer questions, it's an open meeting, I'm going to address it. If you do, I appreciate it. If you can get me an answer, I would appreciate it. But the question is, if a veteran comes in for assistance, is there a set dollar amount that he's limited to, say, per year? How many times can he come in and do that? And I don't know what the answer is.
So, go ahead. So for the food portion, that's what he was specifically asking. That voucher that they get is intended to get them through to the SNAP so they can submit their state benefits for food assistance.
Okay. Do they have to exhaust all their other options before?
They can come to us and then go to their food pantry. They can go to their food pantry. They refer them up to us. We got relationships with all the other food pantries. But if they don't identify as a veteran, then that food pantry might not ever know that that person's a veteran.
I'm assuming a given. They are a veteran.
And a lot of people want anonymity.
Oh, I get that. But again, I'm going to default back to that Section 2 for the just, necessary, and needed assistance and services for military veterans. Not for a school, not for some organization, not for a post. Even though a post may give out food, that's not, the post isn't the veteran. It's for the veteran. You have to identify it for the veteran because that's a spending of your tax money. The other thing that maybe I missed it, I didn't catch what you were talking about with the tax season. Did I understand that you guys are providing funding for people's property tax?
If they're gonna lose their property tax, yeah.
Okay. And you've got somewhere in the statute that outlines you can do that.
I don't know.
One thing I would encourage, food for thought, and I'm not from Missouri, but that old saying of, show me, says who and with what proof. Two key questions, if you apply it to everything. Someone says something, you say something, okay, what proof? We'll go to the statute. Where in the statute does it coincide with that power? You say something, same thing. Says who with what proof? Because we hear a lot of things. Us as an organization, the Edgar County Watchdogs, we go nationally with what we do with local government accountability, and we hear all kinds of things. And a lot of times we hear those things, and I'm not trying to be offensive. If I've offended anybody with my comments, I'm critical of units of local government that haven't been brought into the skill of what's the law say you can or can't do. You made a comment earlier, well, this is the way we've always done it. That's an old adage we hear from every unit of government all across the state. And a lot of times, the way they've always done it has no recollection to what the law says they should or shouldn't do. But if you go back and start reading parts of the law, and it's not really that hard to read, that section 2 is really simple, and just apply the letter of the law, because that's the power you've given. It's kind of like our Constitution. The federal government only has, it used to be, the federal government only has the power we gave them. Now, I know they've exercised well beyond that, but that's an argument for another day, and I won't get into that. But by reading these statutes, you're going to find that things have been done that are completely outside of the scope of power. And I would encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, let's proceed to the Meetings Act opportunity for public address. Item B.
I think we just had that.
We did that?
I'll take another second, no, just kidding.
Addressing matters of interest. So, those are kind of, that's one thing that, so we just had our public address.
Thank you for your comments.
I'm just trying to keep things on an even keel here instead of going, driving everybody crazy with, with jumping up and.
Me trying to keep my notes straight where I'm supposed to be.
If I did this at a Marine Corps League meeting, I wouldn't be there anymore, You guys kick my butt. So, anyway, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. I moved. I need a.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Who said second? Wade Abel?
Any
Time?
discussion?
Absolutely.
8:45.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
7:45.
Thank you.
All those opposed?
Yeah, by 8 we have to be out.
Let's salute the flag. Luke?